Welcome back to the Creative Leadership Network, known as TCLN, where education is the specialty and solutions are the art. Now, you know, right here, I am talking about what's called quiet cracking. It literally comes from the term quiet quitting. So previously, employees were quietly quitting their jobs, correct? And now the term in corporate America is known as quiet cracking. See, a lot of times when we discuss issues, it's very hard for us to get to the core of what it really means to quietly crack, or what is actually cracking employees on these jobs in what's called corporate America. Well, you know, right here at TCLN, I like to get into honesty, truth, because I believe personally that's what sheds the light on it all, and that's what helps us change. Now listen, I want you to understand this one thing. For those of you who have a good heart, you know what I think about you. You're rare, you're needed, and you are much loved in this world. Even if that same world tries to stomp on you, destroy you, take from you, and steal from you, that same world needs your energy and it needs your light. So know that this segment, even though you can learn from it, it's not in particularly about you per se, but it's also on the flip side of that, letting you know that the real issues that you go through really do matter. And I'm not going to push that aside today. We're going to talk about that right here on TCLN Network. So let's get over to the studio and let's see what we got today. Okay, guys, let's go. Okay, I'm going to show you a clip from CBS News Chicago. Please listen to the clip, understand what they are saying, quiet quitting and quiet cracking really is, right?
This clip is used for commentary, analysis, and education under Section 107 of the Copyright Act.
The term quiet quitting has been around for a couple of years. You've probably heard it. It references when employees are kind of just mailing it in and doing the bare minimum at work, checking out, if you will. The concept has existed long before now in a few different terms. And there's a new catchphrase that's going on in the workplace in a similar vein. This one's called quiet cracking.
They're going to go over with you what they believe quiet cracking is, okay? So this is going to be an expert that's explaining what quiet quitting and quiet cracking is. My experience of almost 30 years of what you call corporate America, I want to share with you what I believe is quiet cracking. There's the surface level of when people do surveys and you talk to employees, they're going to only give you so much information, right? They're not going to necessarily tell you everything. But that's what TCLN is all about. It is about diving into those things that we don't talk about, that we need to bring to the surface. So let's watch this clip and we'll be right back.
Joining us now to talk about that is Ben Frank, Senior Director of Wellness at NAMI Chicago, the National Alliance for Mental Illness. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Marie.
I did not know about quiet cracking until today. If
Sure.
you're like me, define it for everyone watching.
I think it's an old term and an old idea that we know about. It's the notion of struggling quietly, not sharing how you're feeling, and trying to keep it below radar and doing it within the workplace.
And almost acting like above ground things are okay, or
trying very much to keep it a secret, not let on that things might not be okay. And this is something that we know as a mental health advocacy organization is a familiar experience.
Sure. Why do you think now we have this new term for it? We're talking about this concept more? Is it the world today, society? What do you think?
I think a little bit of that, and quiet quitting was a notion of people moving, and they felt the freedom to do so. I think there's some ideas that folks may not feel like they have a lot of options, which impedes some of the desire to get help.
Sure, but then that feeling day to day, right, of just like slogging through it and feeling terrible underneath it all.
Yes.
I mean, that's wear and tear on the body and mind.
It absolutely is, on top of all the other stress that happens with work and with what's happening at home in our communities and all over the place.
Before we get into the meat of this episode, I want to go over a few facts with you just so you can get a reality of what I'm actually saying in the message of this episode, okay? So according to the U.S. Census Bureau, there are approximately 340 million people that live in America, okay? As of July 2025, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, you have 163 million people who are employed. Of that 163 million, you have approximately 7.2 million people who are unemployed in the United States of America. Now, if you're watching YouTube, you can kind of stop this and go back and listen to it again, right? Because you really need to get like this overall view of kind of like, what we're dealing with when it comes to people in the world, right? Now, 77%, listen to this closely, 77% are not satisfied with their jobs. And the data from Talent, LMS, HR Dive, and HCA MAG states that 54% are reported to experiencing some level of quiet cracking, and 20% describe it as a frequent or constant feeling. The reason why I wanted to get that to you so you can really get an understanding of how many people are in our world, how many are employed, how many are not employed, and what people are really dealing with, right? That's going to matter as we advance into this story of what we call quiet cracking. Now, you heard the expert on CBS. You heard what he had to say of basically what he thinks quiet cracking is and what he was explaining to the anchor woman. Now, he truly believes that quiet cracking is like this thing, right? Where people, they don't speak up, they go through things, they keep it to themselves, and that most of the people believe that they don't have options, so that's why they don't go talk to no one. Well, through my experience of 30 years of being in corporate America, partial of that is true because that's the surface knowledge of it. And most of the time when you do surveys with people, they don't give you their deep, innermost knowledge. You understand what I'm saying? Like some people are very just private with that, and they're private with the things that they go through. They'll just give you like the surface, like if this is what the norm and comment of what people say, then everybody will say what everybody will say, right? Nobody wants to be put on the spotlight. But I would say 30 years of being in corporate America, what I understand, and I've worked every type of job from fast food, customer service, everything you can think of, to social services, 211, all of that. My understanding is that when you are at work, number one, you are dealing with people. That's the number one thing. It's not the work. You can do any type of job. Listen, I worked at Walmart literally stacking shoes on the shelf. Literally, people, we didn't even have a cash register at Walmart in the back with shoes. You know that. People come to the back, they go to the shoe, and they looking for shoes, this and this and that. You help them, with their shoes. You make sure that the actual shoes are lined up right and everything's clean and the area's clean. And that's pretty much it, what you do in the shoe department, right? And you make sure inventory is correct and on point. Now, and that's the menial you do if you're not a manager. You're just a person working in the shoe department. I've worked in that department and I've had so much fun. It was not the job, even though it was so menial. It was the actual employees that I was working with. My boss, for one, she was the best boss that I had ever met. That's what life was teaching me. Sometimes it's not about the job, sometimes it's about the people that you work with, right? And I've also, on the flip side of that, worked in offices, made more money, worked with pertinent and private information, and you're under stress and you're not feeling well, and there's a lot of energy and a lot of vibe in that arena and in that office. Raise your hands if you guys know what I'm talking about. Just stop, raise your hands. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about, right? So I want to go a little bit deeper because that's what we do on TCLN Network. We bring you the news, give you the headline, let you know what's going on in the news, right? But we go a little bit further, and what we do is we take that information that's in the news and then we begin to break it down. And we begin to be very honest. We begin to break it down, and the goal is to make sure that we're being honest in these conversations, so that way we can find some type of healing, understanding, growth, and we become better and get better, right? Let's be real. How many of you actually know or understand that quiet cracking is so much more than what you just heard from the news clip? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I figured that. We are spirit before we are physical. The majority of what we are feeling, thinking is spiritual. It's more of what you can't see versus what you can see. Now, let's deal with first what's called employee expectation. No matter how much culture and workplace culture and workforce culture you hear about, you and I know that the workforce is not your homie, it's not your next door neighbor, it's not your bestie, it's not your mom and dad, it's not your football team, it's none of that. The workforce is exactly what it is: work and a force, and they have a specific, most businesses and companies, let me say it like this, they have investors or they have partners, and they have goals and metrics that they have to meet. You understand that? So as much as you would like for employers to be your best friend or employers to understand your every whim, it's just not going to happen, right? And you're dealing with every single body that works on that job. Let's just say you're working at Target, right? Do you know how many people work at Target? Do you know how many people come in with attitudes, emotions, feelings? They're dealing with the outside world. They're dealing with this and this and that. Your boss, everybody, even you. The expectations is just too high. You don't go in as your bestie. You don't go in as your football team, as your coach, any of that. You go in with this mindset: work force. But there's more than just being a working force. Remember, I said you don't want to be a slave. You want to be a part of something. And the only way to be a part of something is to understand something by understanding the company itself and then understanding you. Okay, so we're going to get into that, right? I just want to touch on that a little bit. You must understand that there's a lot of the problems come from expectation. People expecting things that's just not what it's going to be, right? And so people be disappointed because they're not getting the boss they think they should have had, or the coworker they think they should have had. Now, don't get me wrong, there's abuse on some of these jobs, there's mistreatment on some of these jobs, and that's not what I'm talking about. That's something totally different. And that's even beyond quiet cracking. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother day, guys. But right now, we're talking about the personal self. And sometimes, what are some of the things that make us crack when we're on a job, right? Now, next, let's go where mainstream kind of did not cover it. I love mainstream because mainstream give you the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There you go, in your face, right? But they don't get to go deeper. You have to understand it is a news show, and news and journalism is based on giving you facts and so that you can self-govern and you can understand yourself and do what you need to do. What I like to do is take those facts that the news give and then to expound upon them, bring our experiences, and then we expound upon it, right? So let's go where mainstream did not go. Now, I want to touch bases on this, right? As of July 1st, 2025, the world population is estimated at 8.23 billion people. 8.23 billion people. In America, and I said this earlier, America alone, there are 343 Americans approximately. Now, I want you to think about that. I want you to imagine 340 something million people in America. Just close your eyes and just think about all these bodies, all these spirits, all these bodies, all these minds and emotions and thoughts and feelings throughout our world. That's a lot, isn't it? Now, condense it down. Let's get on the job. Most of the time, you're not the only employee on your job, unless you just work in like a little small law firm or some little small area. Most of the time, you have 10 or more employees on your job, right? So when you go in, and most of the time, even 50 when you're working for corporations, right? So when you go in, you're not the only body. You're not the only energy. You're not the only person. But when you're walking in, you done watched your morning show. You got your pump me up music. You ready to go. You have a positive attitude. You took care of your spirit. You ate your breakfast. You're feeling good. But that doesn't mean that's what the other coworkers did. Do you understand what I'm saying? They may have been listening to negative rap or negative information. Something else may have been going on. Maybe they're dealing with something at home. It could be anything, right? But that's energy that you deal with on the job. You must understand that you are dealing with not just your energy, not just your spirit. You are dealing with others all around you, not just within the company, but without the company, right? So I know you've heard of this term over and over and over. We're interconnected, right? Now it's not necessarily supposed to be that way. People are not supposed to be necessarily connected to you like that. That's a spiritual journey and a walk that you would have to take in order to start really weaning your spirit from being connected to other energies and life forces that really just don't have your best interests at heart. Again, but the truth is we're dealing with these things. You understand what I'm saying? So I said that to say when you're on a job and you're feeling these feelings of despair, of I don't feel well, or it's just boring, or all of these things you think that you feel, right? You have to understand some of the things you feel is not always you. You understand? And believe it or not, there are people there are people that unfortunately, and I'm going to say this correctly, they don't think maybe as positively as you do. You just want to go to work, do your good job, make sure you respect it at work, get your money, and then go do what you do with your money, right? And you want to make sure you make a contribution. Well, there are people that don't think that way. You understand what I'm saying? And they are more like what they call competitive or jealous or envious. And there are some people, believe it or not, they are watching your spot. They want what you have. I know that people don't like to talk about this in the workforce, but it is the truth. There are people that, listen, there are people that's working at, let's just say you working at McDonald's, right? Everybody's putting the fries in the bag, everybody's doing their little job, and somebody is desiring to be team lead. Somebody is desiring to be manager one day of another McDonald's. And you don't know this. You understand what I'm saying? You're just going to work, minding your business. But guess what? Somebody else do know this. And they overhear the boss bragging about your qualities, how hard you work, your talent, your skill, and how great you are with the customers. People get envious. And because they have this thought inside them that they want to advance, then they need to move you out the way. So people understand how to spiritually make trouble for you. So the number one thing is that you have to understand sometimes what you think you feel or what you think is going on is not always you. Sometimes it's the environments that you in, and it's the different energy that you're dealing with. People can laugh and talk in your face all day long. And if you're not spiritually minded and you don't understand spiritual things, you can be fooled all the time. Do you understand what I'm saying? So number one, always know that there are people who know what you don't know, and then there's you who know what other people don't know. But I guarantee you, there are people that don't just come on a job just to do the right thing. There are people that want to excel, need to excel, want something better. There are people that they work in a little position and they look over at your position and they smile at you and they say your name, but they really desire your position. And let me give you an example. I used to work for a company. I will not say the company name. I respect the company highly. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a nonprofit, but it's associated with all resources in Texas, period. So I would never say their name because it's not about them. It was about some events that were going on, right? So I was working for this particular organization. And every day, my supervisor would come in. And I was new to the game. Every day, my supervisor would come in, and I was being accused of, for some reason, of doing things that I was not doing. I was like, I've never in my life heard of anything like this. They said that when people would be gone, I was going through their drawers and opening up their drawer. I was like, what in the world? Like, I had never heard of anything like that. And so then I would ask them every time they called me into meet, and I said, well, who's telling you this? I said, bring them in. I was like, where are you getting this from? They said, oh, well, we can't do that, this and this and this and that. Listen, guys, I went through this for about a good 2 months, anywhere from 2 to 3 months. When you talk about quietly cracking, but what was my circumstance before that? My circumstance was before that is that I didn't have a job for a long period of time. You understand what I'm saying? And then I had started back going to college, so I didn't have a job. All these things were going on, and I was just trying to keep a roof over my head, keep my head low, work very hard, do my job, show that, I'm responsible. I can do this job, loving the job. You understand what I'm saying? But I was quietly cracking. And I was quietly cracking because of the environment and what was going on. Not because of the task of the job, not because it was boring or menial. It was because what was happening. And eventually what ended up happening, let me make this story short. Eventually what ended up happening is that one day they called me and another person into the office, right? And I'm like, and I was so scared, guys. I was sitting at my desk. I was so scared. I was like, I cannot lose my job. I just can't lose my job. I was like, I need this job. See, people know when you need something, and people know how to play on you. That's why you got to be careful. You have to be confident, right? All of this is a part of quiet cracking. So anyway, I remember sitting at my desk, and I remember saying a prayer. And I remember saying, God, I'm going to let this go. I'm not going to hold on to it like that. If I keep it, I keep it. If I lose it, I lose it. But I refuse to feel this feeling. I refuse to feel like this. And I literally released it right then and there. So we went into the office. They called us in there, and I got to see who the person was who was doing this to me the whole time. And so what ended up happening, HR was sitting before us. That person was sitting, and I was sitting. We were all sitting before HR, right? And HR said, okay, we're going to ask you like this. We're going to ask you a few questions, and we want you to put yourself in the position of HR and tell us how you would answer these questions. And so as we were sitting there, HR asked her first, right? She went first. She said, I'll go. So they asked her first. If a person, you said that she doesn't answer her calls, she's doing this and this and that. If a person was found to be doing this, what would you do? She said, oh, I just fire her. I would just fire her. I'll get rid of her. I would just fire her. And that was her answer, right? And so then they came to me, and then they asked me the same exact question. I said, well, number one, I said, we have what's called technology. We go by Cisco. Cisco is a program where you can monitor employees and you can even monitor them from home. It will tell you about every call that has been answered, every call that has been dropped, and every call that has been transferred. So it will give you status on if a person is really doing that or not. I said, so number one, I wouldn't be going by what nobody would be saying. I would check the records to see if it matches up. And then number two, I would ask myself, why was this person continually running in my office, asking, telling me about this person all the time, this person, but this person never seems to run in the office about them. What is really going on? Let me get to the root of it. And there was a few other things they asked and stuff like that. And I remember thinking, what in the world is this all about? But I wanted to give that because, like I'm saying to you, you never know who's attacking you, or what you think you feel, or what you think you going on. Sometimes it may not be you. Sometimes it just may be someone who needs for you to leave. Now, a little bit later, I ended up finding out after I was no longer there at the company, because I wanted to go to college full time and I was going part time at the time. And I knew I needed to go full time to really focus in, right? And what I ended up finding out, pay attention, guys. What I ended up finding out is that one day I called up there to get some employment verification. The very supervisor that was accusing me with this other person got a position that the other manager, which was over us, she wanted that position so badly that, come to find out, people were behind closed doors discussing me, talking about me, trying to get me to do more and to more talent, and she felt me to be a threat and she needed me out. So again, guys, sometimes the pressure is not coming from you necessarily cracking per se like you think. Sometimes those feelings can be projected towards you because of a battle that is going on. That's why sometimes you need to understand your environment and what's really going on. It may not be the job per se, it just may be some jealous competition. Trying to make you feel like, oh, I'm tired of this job. It's boring. I'm going through. I'm stressed. I'm this. Sometimes you need to check to see what's going on. Okay. Now, I want to move on to some key points, right? And here's the deal. Psychological research. Studies in psychology have consistently found that people have a negativity bias, right? We are more likely to notice and remember and be influenced by negativity than we are the positivity. And you know that. You have 2 people come along and tell you how beautiful you are, 10 people come along and tell you that you're not, and you listen to the 10 more than you listen to the other 2, right? Now, mental health trends. A survey from the CDC and the APA show rising levels of stress, anxiety, and depression in the U.S., especially among younger people. These often correlate with more negative patterns. Thought patterns, according to some, estimate that the average person has 10,000 thoughts per day, and a large percentage are repetitive and negative. So remember when I was saying earlier, you're dealing with all the energy that's all around you, from home, from work, from your environment, from everything. So when you're feeling things and you're sensing things on your body or on your mind, sometimes you need to stop and question yourself. Is that energy force or energy source coming from somewhere else, or is that truly you? And you need to evaluate that, okay? Cultural shifts. Despite rising mental health awareness and wellness trends, things like economic uncertainty, social media, and political polarization may contribute to more negative internal narratives for many Americans. So just so you can get a little bit, right? And it all kinds of tie in, right? So I just wanted you to understand that a little bit more. Now let's get into this quiet cracking and what it really looks like on the job. It could be digital bullying, passive aggressive Slack Teams messages, exclusion from email threads, mocking emojis, forgetting to tag someone, stuff like that, right? But you know that it's a little bit of rejection or a little bit of shade, right? Public shaming, correcting someone harshly in front of clients or colleagues, or when no one is looking, side talking, people acting like they're talking about somebody else, but you know that they're really talking about you. Silent sabotage, withholding information or resources from you so that you would fail on these jobs, right? And corporate gaslighting, labeling complaints as a lack of resilience or not being a team player, right? So all of this contributes to quiet cracking. Now I know the experts talked about it in such the way that they did, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper to understand that this is how some of this stuff play out. And it's not that you're quietly cracking, it's just that you're dealing with this battle. You understand what I'm saying? That you sometimes don't have people to go talk to on the job because we understand when they say open door policy. Come on now, people running cliques and clans. And sometimes those open doors are not always open as we would love for them to be, right? Okay. Now, if you don't believe things like this are happening, because maybe you work at one of those, honey, I love my job. what did what did Vice President come here and say? I love my black job. Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that Obama wife said, I love my black job. Well, honey, everybody is not going to be the president's wife or they're not going to be the VP like Kamala. So we have to understand sometimes we are working jobs that has nothing to do with that, right? Now, I want to close out part one with this. To the boss, it's not the upper heads. Many frontline managers feed or feel squeezed. They think that it's burnout, disengagement, turnover, or the fault of corporate HR, right? Or headquarters. I'm sorry. C suites, mandates. Reality is much of the harm happens in day-to-day operations and interactions. A boss may unconsciously pass pressure downhill by snapping at staff, setting unclear expectations, or failing to protect a team from toxic coworkers. The truth is, it's not always about higher ups. Sometimes it's how you direct the manager, treat the people in small moments. And if you are ignoring their concerns, playing favorites, we see that a lot on the job, dismissing ideas, or not standing up against workplace bullies when you are seeing it, right? Also, many managers and supervisors have had training in skill and knowledge when it comes to doing the job, maybe even in ethics and training. But this alone does not fix jealousy, hatred, envy, competition. It breeds more low self esteem, right? And many of you bring it into the corporate workspace. And this causes much disruption. And because when talent is brought on board, you guys have to understand sometimes when we don't fix those internal issues that managers can have, right? They will begin to be intimidated by persons that work up under them that are very talented or very gifted. And instead of them acknowledging that, they feel threatened or intimidated, like someone is going to take their place or their job out of fear. A lot of that causes quiet cracking because then people begin to break down and they feel that they can't be their full self. You understand what I'm saying? So now let's get over to employees. Employees, it's not your boss all the time, right? Employees often blame their direct boss for stress when in fact the real problem can be peer behavior, hostile coworkers, or bullying disguised as team culture. You guys know about that, right? HR surveys show a huge portion of the workplace stress doesn't come from workforce or workloads alone, but from toxic colleagues. The truth is that sometimes the boss is just caught up in the middle, and this is true, while the real crack is in your day-to-day well-being comes from peers who misuse the corporate platform. Slack, Teams, emails, undercut, and belittling each other on the job. Unlike your boss, You do not yet have a position of authority, but you feel the need to get rid of any employee or any coworker you feel threatened by, right? If you feel that that person has more talent than you, or the boss is saying more greater things about them than you, then you automatically feel threatened, because you didn't come to your job after all just to stay in that one little position. You want to advance, you want to do things within the company. And again, it boils down to, if you haven't fixed that part of you, sometimes that can be intimidated. You understand what I'm saying? That can feel small or petty. You will literally feel threat mode, that you have to get rid of that person. And what happens is people begin to form cliques and teams and groups, and they start sabotaging another employee. You understand what I'm saying? And then the lies spread, the slander spreads, and then the boss starts to do the same. So this is a lot of where quiet cracking comes from. And this is why I wanted to talk on this, because in the media, they don't really say it in mainstream media. They just let you know what the facts are, that people are going through this, and they say that they're quietly cracking, but they didn't give the details on what some of this quiet cracking really was, right? It could be things from home, it could be things from work, but most of the time when we're talking about quiet cracking in the workforce, these are a lot of the things that you're dealing with, right? So I hope that was able to help you, and I hope you were able to really understand that this is the truth of what, the core of some of the things that be going on. Now, let's move to what we call the slave mentality agenda, y'all. We're going to make this quick, right? You wake up in the morning, you clock in, you pay your bills, you go escape for the weekend, you have a little fun, you party with your friends, and then you do it all over again, right? You go do it all over again. It's like this cycle, right? That's what I mean by slavery. See, let me tell you something, and I mentioned this earlier. When a whole group of people are working at a company, but they're not working by the mission or the vision or the higher call of that company, everybody start becoming slaves. You got to meet metrics. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to meet demands, investor demands. You got to make that money. You got to get that money. I don't care about nobody else. I'm just going to get my sales. I'm just going to get my money. I can do that. That employee don't matter. This, and this, and that. I'm just all about my sales, all about my money, or this, and that. These types of attitudes that people listen to in culture. You know how people listen to this music? Such and such better have my money. Everybody started getting full of pride. Well, people start bringing that stuff into the workplace, and it's no place to have these types of attitudes. You have to be working as a whole organization, as a team, and you have to be on board with the higher call. And then you have to understand, okay, what is my space that I am fulfilling to fulfill this vision, right? Now, you can easily say, I don't want to fulfill somebody else's vision. I want to work for myself, this and this and that. That's great. But until then, you need to make sure that when you're working for someone else, that you're being positive toward their vision. So when it come time for your vision, you want positive people to be positive toward your vision, right? So if you're going to decide to work for somebody, until you do all those things, you need to understand that the job is not as boring as you think it is. The job is not as whack as you think it is. The problem is, and always will be, is people, people, people. Do you understand that? So you have to put things in perspective. You have to put things in the truth of, how do you really view this job? How do you really view the task that you do? Are you making the most of it? Are you making it positive? If you want to start your own company one day, are you developing those skills while you are there? You understand what I'm saying? So you can either advance those skills when you start your own company, or teach those skills to someone else so that they can help make sure that your company is running well. So again, it's all about responsibility, right, guys? This slave mentality, let's go over this, because this is where people begin to have this attitude, well, and you see it in everyday life. Let's talk about Cardi B, right? So the young lady is talking on the stand, and she's stating that Cardi B spit at her and that Cardi B called her all kind of names. Now I don't know the full story. They're still in trial. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna say negative nothing about Cardi B or anyone else. What I am saying is that you see this in culture a lot though. So she supposedly spit at the young woman, according to her testifying on the stand, and she said that Cardi B said, all you got is a little security job. Look at you. Ah ha 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 ha. You understand what I'm saying? So people look at each other and they judge each other. You understand what I'm saying? By the jobs that they work, by the things that they do, right? The slave mentality. Slaves attacking slaves. You understand what I'm saying? But it just goes to show you that's how you know when we operating from a slave mentality. We're so busy judging one another's position, judging how much more money do I make than you and how much more do you make than me and your position and my position. Slave mentalities. Nobody's working toward the vision of the company. Everybody's working for themselves and having these mentalities. You understand what I'm saying? So, purpose versus paycheck. Most employees never invest their same energy into their own vision. Right? You get on these jobs. You understand what I'm saying? You have been given resources. You've been given skills. They teach you a skill set. So you don't understand all that you have. And then you get a paycheck. If you were busy using the paycheck wisely, then you could be investing in your own things that you want to do and your own visions, right? That's how you have to do it. You have to think differently from the world. Can't keep going out partying all the time. If you're so just tired of your job like you're saying you are, or it's just not working for you, then you have to tweak a little bit thinking. And most of that comes with responsibility of understanding that when you come into corporate America, it's not your agenda. You're coming and you signed that employment contract because you're there to give a skill set and they're there to give you something in return, right? Right. Slaves attacking slaves. Instead of recognizing the system, workers turn on each other. Competition for positions, promotion, boss approval. You understand what I'm saying? All of that. Okay. If I can't shine, you can't shine. Mentality. You understand what I'm saying? If I can't go higher, what makes you think you going higher? We see that in the world every day, right? The agenda. This isn't accidental, it's by design. Divide employees against each other so that they do not unite and step back to pursue their own call. Corporate can be known for rewarding compliance and competition, not creativity and self determination. Not all corporate, but there's a lot of competition that goes on in corporate, right? So just understand that. Okay. So slavery in corporate America do not look like whips and chains. What it looks like is routines and distractions. Do you understand that? Many are chained to a paycheck, but not connected to purpose. The system wins twice. It keeps you busy, and then it convinces you to attack one another. Okay? So just understand that, guys. Just understand that. And after all of this, you're always trying to either leave your positions or rise up in position. Do you understand that? Do you understand that? And it's causing this discontentment. Because a lot of this stuff, and this is what's known as quiet cracking. You understand what I'm saying? Now, there could be, like I said, many reasons of why people quiet crack, but right now I'm just talking about these issues that I know for sure that goes on in corporate America all the time, right? When you see commercials or when you see corporate culture, when you're looking for jobs, everything looks lovely. But we know when you get behind closed doors, it's like a family, right? People look over and be like, man, they got a cool family, but you don't even know what's going on behind closed doors, right? Same thing, same thing. Now, let's get to the golden rule, guys. The golden rule. Treat others as you would want to be treated, right? Let me ask you a question. If you lost your job today and you only had a limited amount of savings, you have the bills you have to pay, you have your car note, you have your apartment or whatever you stay, mortgage or whatever, and you didn't have as much as you would like to have saved up, And let's just say you're looking for another job, you're looking for another job, but the savings you have is running out because you've been paying for a time period and you haven't found another job yet. And all the doors have been shut on you. And then all of a sudden, you're being threatened with the ideal of homelessness. How would you want people to treat you? How would you want people to look at you? Would you want people to look at you and say, "You so lazy, you're not even trying"? Like, are you even looking for jobs? No, you're not trying. You're not trying. Ain't there's no way if you was really looking for a job full time that you could not have no job within 3 months. No, you're just not trying. Would you want people to say, "Oh, you know, your attitude, it's you, you're the problem," you know? I mean, like, how would you want people to look at you? Well, do you know, guys, that many times people on jobs, instead of them being appreciative of what they have and being very thankful and using those resources to do better of their own goals and dreams and visions, they love to meddle with other people. And they love to talk about what they have and what somebody else doesn't have. You understand what I'm saying? Until they don't have it no more. And then they want the world to cry with them. So the reason why I wanted to touch on this, because I want you to remember that many people who say that they're quiet cracking are once that same system that was stomping on people who were quiet cracking themselves. So guys, you have to remember, you know what I'm saying? Don't take this as somebody judging you or getting on you or looking down on you. Guys, you have to remember. You have to remember. There's this old saying, it could have been me. You understand what I'm saying? So if it's not you, be very, very thankful because the truth is, honey, it can be. Don't get it twisted. And you don't want to find yourself there because you talk about quiet cracking, honey, it's beyond quiet cracking. If you ever had to go through homelessness where you living on the streets or you living out in and out of shelters that are so disturbing that it just blows your mind. You understand what I'm saying? You think, honey, by the time, listen, you have you ever heard of that scared straight? Have you ever heard of when they take the kids to the prison house and them kids get straight, they get straight, they get scared straight, they start straightening up? Well, go through some of that stuff for real. I guarantee you, y'all, you be appreciating them jobs. You'll wake up every morning and be like, thank you, God. You understand what I'm saying? It's just that you don't stop there, though. Don't become a slave. Don't stop there. Use the resources you got to get better and better and to contribute to your own vision outside of work. Do you understand that? The attacks that sometimes people who work in corporate America have on others, it really exposes the hypocrisy in our world. It exposes people complaining about what they're going through on the job, but then they're willing to pass that negative energy on to people that don't even have a job and to make fun of them and to step on them and to compare themselves to them. And it's in culture, guys. It's in culture. It's in music. It's in everywhere. I got money and you don't. I'm this and you ain't. You know, it's everywhere. Like it's just this thing, right? That's the beast. Remember when I talked about the corporate beast that came to kill, steal, and destroy, and to suck the very life out of us, and that if we're not giving life to the higher call, then life is being sucked from us. You understand that? That's what I was referring to. That's what all this information is about today. You understand what I'm saying? That's what it's about. So we have to remember these three things. Number one, not your boss, not the upper heads, not the employees. It starts back with us. We got to remember. You understand what I'm saying? That it's us, but you're also dealing with all these people in the world. And sometimes you got to examine to see where that type of energy is coming from to make sure that it's not you. Because there's always somebody trying to get you out your spot. Number two, you got to understand the slave men agenda, the slave mentality, slave fighting against slaves. You understand what I'm saying? When you really working toward a mission in corporate America and you really everybody understands the mission and understands the purpose, no matter how small their position, no matter how big, and everybody work together, you're not having a slave mentality. You're not worried about fighting over each other's position. You're not worried about kicking each other down. It doesn't mean you don't want to advance, you don't want to do better, but you're working from a higher place. You understand what I'm saying? A better place. Number three, do unto others as you would really want them to do unto you. Stop laughing at homeless people. Stop making fun of homeless people. Stop making fun of people that don't have as much as you have. You understand what I'm saying? Even if they're not homeless. Laughing at people, they circumstance, they situations, making fun of people. And then as soon as you go all of a sudden you just cracking. And they'll be like, but you were cracking somebody else on it. You were cracking they feelings, darling. Just cracking them. So make sure you guys understand that, okay? Okay. I want to read something to you. I think this is very, very special. And I'm going to end with this. And I want to read this to you guys. You understand? This book is called Dream Year. Make the leap from a job you hate to a life you love. Again, this show is not about hating your job. It's about examining yourself and examining what quiet cracking is you, or what you are actually going through that you are calling quiet cracking. Sometimes it may not even be you. You understand what I'm saying? But if you are one of those people that you're dreaming of a vision or you're dreaming of something different, I want you to understand, don't just jump ship and quit your job. Be positive towards your job, contribute toward the vision, but understand you can take the resources that you get from that job, which is your skill set and your money, and work towards your own dream. Now, I want to read you something, right? And I want you to listen to me very closely. This book is by Ben Arment. You can get this at a library, a public library, or you can buy it off of Amazon. Let's start with this. You're a good horse. At the 2009 Kentucky Derby, 18 thoroughbreds ripped out of the starting gate and pounded into the straightway. The pack mostly stayed together until the first turn. When the field started thinning out, spectators kept their eyes on the favorites, and the announcers recited their names over the loudspeaker. But suddenly, at the third turn, an overlooked horse at 52 odds burst into the lead from outside. Mind That Bird is the name of the horse, had a long-standing losing streak. He wasn't a contender to win, not by a long shot. So when he emerged from the back of the pack to the front of the pack, the announcer stumbled over his notes to try to find his name. As Mind That Bird blasted across the finish line, far ahead of the other horses, the announcer could hardly contain his surprise. A spectacular finish, he hurled. He declared the victory to be an impossible result. When the jockey Calvin Borel was asked how Mind That Bird could have possibly won, he said, "I rode him like a good horse." He instilled the faith in the horse to win. He believed in him. Dream Year is founded on the basis that most of us get ridden like a bad horse. Most of our lives, our parents have put us down, bosses have insulted us, colleagues have underestimated what we can do. Even worse, we fell for it. So I want to stop there, and then I want to go over to a second part. If Mind That Bird could come from behind to win the Kentucky Derby, you can benefit from the faith of other people as well. Have you heard of those studies that show how children perform in school at a level that their teachers' belief is in them? At a level that their teachers' belief is in them. It's true. You are the product of the voices in your life, and it's up to you to decide who you will listen to. You are a good horse. Surround yourself with people who believe in you. If you got naysayers in your life, ditch that stall that they put you in and find another jockey. Go achieve impossible results. I thought that was beautiful, so I just wanted to read that to you. And I'm going to stop right here. All of us have dreams that we want to bring to life. But like glorified beggars, we hold them out like empty cups, waiting for someone else to fund them, approve them, or give us an opportunity. There was a day when gatekeepers determined Whether your project got launched, you got discovered, you got funded, you got greenlit, you got picked up, or you got approved. This has always been the conventional pathway, but not anymore. The best way to get your project launched is for you to launch your project. The best way to get your dreams launched is for you to launch your dreams. And what I'm saying to you today is that no matter what you are going through on that job, if you will start to shift your mind and to understand that, hey, I'm not going to look at this job as a job. I'm going to look at this job as a vision and I'm going to invest in it, but I'm also going to take what I'm given and start investing in myself. A lot of that will cut out what's called your quiet cracking. Seriously, because you'll stop being a part of the gossip crew. You'll stop being a part of all the mess that's going on the job, all the complaining and all that, because you're looking at it differently. You understand what I'm saying? And you're viewing it differently. And if you're on a job where there's abuse and major stuff, that's something totally different, guys. I would never tell you to stay up under something like that. That's something totally different. And that is a place where you do need to find you something different. You understand what I'm saying? But don't go to another job expecting that heaven is just going to fall out the sky for you. These expectations are just not it, you guys. It's just not it. You have to know that corporate is law, and law these businesses have to abide by. So there are certain standards that they have to meet, there are certain things that they have to do, and they're just not your babysitter. It's a job. It's somebody's vision. Somebody started the company, but at the end of the day, everybody else there, you have a part you have to do. And that's the bottom line. You could talk about corporate culture all you want to. You can make it look fancy. You can make it look fun. And some jobs do a really great job at really trying to make people feel a part and to do great things. But when you're dealing with corporate America and you're dealing with a lot of employees, it's just not going to always play out like you expect or that you dream. So you're going to have to dream a different dream. You're going to have to say, okay, what is the vision of this company? What is this company's vision? What position do I have and how do I add to this vision? And if you know you're one of those people, you don't want to be there forever, then respect that vision, do the best you can there, and take your resources, your skills, your money, and start investing in your own while you're there. Okay? So that'll cut out a lot of your quiet cracking. You understand what I'm saying? If it's more personal things at home, you have to learn because you got bills to pay and you have a life to live. So you have to learn how to separate what goes on at home from when you hit that door at work. You know, you see some of your top formers, top athletes, they're able to do that. They have problems at home, they go through all kind of stuff. But when they step in that arena, they turn it off. They turn it completely off. You got to do what you got to do. You understand what I'm saying? And so it is when you get home. You don't be taking work home with you. You turn it off. Now you got to deal with what you got to deal with at home, right? So I hope this has been very helpful for you on the thing of what's called quiet cracking, okay? Now I want to wrap this up. We have to always start with knowing who we are, knowing who we truly are. Like, what are your gifts? What are your talents? What are your abilities? Your likes, your dislikes, your tolerances, the things that you just don't tolerate. Like, just really knowing who you are. You understand what I'm saying? Types of people you enjoy being around, types of people you don't. You know, can you imagine that you don't like gossip and that you work at a job that all you hear is gossip 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? That's going to start turning you into something that you just don't want to be. You understand what I'm saying? Or keeping you in environments you just don't want to be. So, number one, know who you are. Know yourself. Know what you want out of life. This goes for CEOs, managers, employees. It doesn't matter. A lot of quiet cracking come from we don't know who we are. We don't know who we are. We take out the time to know everybody else is being the girl. Let me tell you about such and such. Girl, now you know she over there down there, you know. But who are you? And when you start discovering who you are and your potential, that's what you want to invest in. that's going to start breaking a lot of that quiet cracking off your life. You're still going to have situations you have to deal with. You're still going to have people you have to deal with. None of that is going to change, but your perspective will begin to change because you'll start loving more of your life. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe and share with others. Okay. Um, Thank you for joining in today, right here on this broadcast. And you guys have a beautiful, beautiful week. Okay.
Thank you for tuning in to TCLN Network, Austin Public. TCLN Network is independently produced by IBK Media Productions. To support TCLN Network financially, visit paypal.me/TCLN Network, also TCLN Channel Podcast. To learn more about TCLN Network, visit thecreativeleadershipnetwork.com and follow on all socials TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at IBK Media Works.